roar of party chatter. Fairy lights crisscrossed the ceiling, the whole place smelling of fresh paint and takeout pizza. My brother's voice boomed over the crowd. "I've got an announcement," he shouted, tapping a fork against his beer bottle like it was some kind of royal decree. His wife stood beside him, glowing in that smug, practiced way. The room hushed. "My wife is pregnant with your ex-husband's baby." Laughter rippled in pockets, the kind people use when they're not sure if they should be laughing. Then he added, like the punchline to some twisted joke, "And as compensation, I'll be taking half of your $800,000 apartment." He waved a stack of papers like a magician about to reveal his final trick. I tilted my head, pretending to study them. The official seals, the legal jargon, his greasy fingerprints smudging the corner. "Oh, I see," I said. My voice was light, almost curious. What no one in that room knew, what I'd been waiting for someone to give me the perfect excuse to reveal, was that my ex-husband had signed something long before the divorce. Something that made every word in my brother's precious court papers nothing more than recycled printer ink. I caught my brother's eye and let a small, deliberate smile curl at the corner of my mouth. The kind of smile that says you have no idea what you've just done to yourself. Across the room, someone whispered, "Did she know?" Someone else muttered, "This is going to get ugly." I clinked my champagne against a stranger's glass, as if this were all entertainment to me. In truth, I was already building the opening scene in my mind, the one where my brother learns that possession isn't just 9/10 of the law, but in this case, 10 out of 10. I drained my glass. "Congratulations," I said to both of them, in the most sincere voice I could muster. Because my ex, well, he had given me something better than any settlement. He'd given me the kind of leverage that doesn't expire, doesn't depreciate, and can be deployed with surgical precision.
And tonight?
Tonight, I'd just been handed my target. The party dissolved into smaller conversations, but I could feel the sideways glances. My brother basked in his own announcement, oblivious to the fact that the heat in the room had shifted, and it wasn't in his favor. I slipped into the kitchen under the pretense of getting more champagne. The fridge was already crammed with beer, soda, and a half-eaten cake that read "New Home, New Life" in cheap icing. I took the bottle, but lingered near the counter, listening. In the living room, my brother's wife, my now co-conspirator in this bizarre family soap opera, was holding court. "She's just mad because I got the man she couldn't keep," she said, rubbing her stomach like a prize. The room chuckled in that uncomfortable way people do when they're siding with the loudest voice. I didn't step back in. I let her have the stage. Because people like her, they don't realize when the spotlight is cooking them alive. I checked my phone. My attorney, Richard, had texted. "I told you they'd try something. Call me when you're alone." Richard wasn't just a lawyer. He was the kind of man who could find a loophole in a brick wall. And 3 years ago, after my ex-husband's gambling incident, Richard drafted a contingency clause in our prenuptial agreement. The clause essentially said, any party proven to have acted in a way that intentionally caused financial harm to the other forfeits all claims.
Permanently.
Infidelity. That was one thing. But this? My brother announcing a claim to my apartment in front of 30 witnesses? That was performance art in legal suicide. From the kitchen doorway, I watched him. He was laughing, his hand splayed protectively over the very belly carrying my ex's child. He didn't see me, didn't notice the tiny recorder in my pocket blinking red. I wandered back in, champagne in hand. "You really want half my place?" I asked sweetly.
He grinned.
"It's only fair. You don't even need all that space." "You're right," I said, letting the words hang just a moment too long. "Fairness is important." He smirked, thinking he'd scored another point. What he didn't know was that the next time we'd speak about this would be in a setting far less festive, under fluorescent lights, with a stenographer typing every word, and my lawyer smiling the way predators do when dinner walks right into the trap. 3 days later, I walked into Richard's office with the audio file queued up on my phone. His conference room smelled faintly of leather and old coffee, walls lined with legal texts that might as well have been weapons in his hands. I pressed play. My brother's voice filled the space. My wife is pregnant with your ex's baby. I'll be taking half your $800,000 apartment. Richard's smile was slow and deliberate. He said this in front of how many people? 30, maybe more. And I can get at least 5 to swear under oath. Perfect. He pushed the recording aside like a poker player sliding in chips. We'll file a preemptive motion to dismiss any claim he tries to make. But before that, we make it public. I raised an eyebrow. Public. Richard leaned back, tapping a pen against his desk. People like your brother operate on bluster. They count on embarrassment to keep others quiet. You take away the privacy. You take away the power. It's surgical. That afternoon, I sent a polite, concise email to every guest at the party. Dear all, for transparency, I am sharing this audio from Saturday evening. It involves a property claim made against me, which my attorney has confirmed is entirely baseless. I appreciate your awareness as legal proceedings begin. I attached the file. By evening, my phone was blowing up. Friends, cousins, even an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. What's wrong with him? Is this a joke? Tell me you're suing. And then silence from my brother. 2 days later, a formal letter arrived from his legal representation, a generic printout from some low-level paralegal threatening appropriate action. Richard read it, snorted, and slid it into a file labeled Amateur Hour. We didn't respond.
Not yet.
Instead, Richard filed a public notice of intent to pursue damages for defamation and attempted fraud. That meant the claim and the recording became part of the public record. Anyone with internet access could see it. My brother called at 11:47 p.m., his voice slurred. What the hell are you doing? I didn't raise my voice. Fairness, remember? That's what you said was important. He cursed and hung up. I went to bed smiling, knowing we'd just set the first domino tipping. By the time it hit the last one, he wouldn't just lose the claim. He'd be scrambling to explain why he ever thought it was a good idea to tangle with me in the first place. And that explanation? It would cost him more than my apartment was worth. The cracks began at home. My brother's wife, the self-appointed queen of our family soap opera, posted a cryptic Facebook status. Funny how some people can't handle sharing. Guess greed runs in the family. It backfired instantly. The comment section became a battlefield. You literally tried to take her house? You're pregnant with her ex's baby?
Wow.
Just wow. Within hours, she deleted the post. But screenshots, as always, lived forever. I stayed silent online, letting the narrative feed on its own. That was Richard's advice, and it worked. The more they tried to defend themselves, the deeper they sank. Meanwhile, Richard was quietly tightening the net. He requested financial discovery, not because we needed it for my case, but because he suspected their new home was already under strain. Turns out, he was right. The mortgage was in her name only, the down payment borrowed from her parents. And the bank? 3 months behind on payments. This isn't just a defense anymore, Richard said, sliding the file toward me. This is leverage. At the next family gathering, my aunt's retirement lunch, they showed up late, looking like they'd spent the morning in separate rooms. My brother avoided me entirely, but his wife tried for a smile. Still enjoying your little game? She asked, voice sugar-coated and sour all at once. I leaned in just enough for her to catch the scent of my perfume, the one my ex used to buy me. It's not a game if you've already lost. She blinked, but before she could answer, I walked away to refill my drink. I didn't need to stay for her reaction. The silence behind me was loud enough. That night, Richard called with the news we'd been waiting for. They're offering to drop any future claim if you remove the audio from public record. I almost laughed. And give up the fun of watching them sweat? Not yet. We declined the offer. Public record stayed. And word was spreading beyond family now, through mutual friends, old co-workers, even the realtor who sold me my apartment. My brother was no longer celebrating new life. He was fielding awkward questions about paternity tests, legal bills, and whether or not he'd be homeless by Christmas. And I was just getting started. The dominoes were still falling, and I had no intention of stopping them. The implosion began with a baby shower. It was supposed to be a glowing Instagram event, pastel balloons, champagne flutes of sparkling cider, and endless selfies. But 2 days before, half the guest list mysteriously couldn't make it. By the time the cake was cut, only 8 people were there. 4 of them from her side, none from ours. The photos she posted later were cropped so tightly, you'd never know the room was mostly empty. Meanwhile, Richard's quiet campaign continued. He'd subpoenaed text messages between my brother and my ex to establish timeline relevance. What he really wanted was proof of collusion, and he got it. Scrolling through them was like peeling wallpaper off a rotting wall. My brother bragged about tricking her out of the apartment and hitting her while she's still raw from the divorce. Those exact words, printed in black and white, were now in a file labeled Exhibit C. We didn't publish those messages.
Not yet.
Sometimes the best weapon is one the enemy knows you're holding, but hasn't felt pierce skin. That weekend, my brother tried calling again. I let it go to voicemail. His tone was different now, thin, strained. Listen, can we just stop? This is getting out of hand. Out of hand? No. This was the most controlled I'd felt in months. By Monday, I got word through a mutual friend that his wife had moved back in with her parents for space. Publicly, she claimed it was because of pregnancy stress. Privately, everyone knew it was because the bank had sent a foreclosure notice. I pictured them in separate houses, trading passive-aggressive texts about baby names and overdue bills. Richard, ever the tactician, proposed our next move. Release one of the texts. Just one. Something subtle. Enough to confirm the rumor mill is right without looking vindictive. We chose the tricking her out of the apartment line. Sent anonymously to a local gossip blog, it landed online by his family? Disgusting. And she's pregnant? Hope that kid has better morals. Can't believe people like this actually exist. By Thursday, my brother stopped answering calls entirely. He'd gone quiet online, too. No gym selfies, no family man captions, nothing. It was almost too easy. But I knew the final blow couldn't just be humiliation. It had to be public, poetic, and permanent. The kind of thing you can't walk back from. And I already knew exactly where it would land. The where was my building's annual charity auction. It's the kind of event my brother and his wife used to love, polished photos, catered bites, everyone pretending to be effortlessly wealthy. This year, they hadn't been invited, but I made sure they would hear about it. I bought the prime auction slot, 10 minutes before the keynote speaker, when the crowd is at its thickest. My item? A framed deed to my apartment, with a small gold plaque underneath that read, "Paid in full, never shared." It wasn't just real estate paperwork, it was a statement. And everyone in that room knew the backstory by now. When my slot came, I walked on stage in a black dress, simple, tailored, nothing flashy. The host introduced me, but I didn't say much. I didn't need to. I just smiled and handed the microphone back. The applause felt blared. Some clapped for charity, some for me, some because they just realized the rumors were true. Later, over champagne, I accidentally let it slip to one of my brother's old friends that the deed was now laminated, because people have tried to take it before. By the end of the night, 3 different people had texted him that exact line. The next morning, Richard sent me an email with no subject line, just a photo of my brother outside the bank, head in hands, phone pressed to his ear. Someone had clearly taken it from across the street. Word is, Richard wrote, his in-laws are cutting off financial help. That same day, a package arrived at my door. No return address. Inside, the crumpled court papers he'd waved at me months ago. No note, just the papers. I almost laughed. It wasn't surrender. It was spite. The kind of act you make when you've run out of real moves. I put them in a folder marked archive. Not trash, a trophy. By Friday, his wife had gone entirely private on social media. My brother followed 2 days later. Their silence was delicious. But I wasn't quite done. Because while they'd been busy scrambling to keep up appearances, I'd been working on something bigger, something that would make sure their little stunt would echo in every family holiday, every reunion, every polite dinner party for years. It was time for the reveal. The reveal came at Thanksgiving. Our family hadn't been in the same room since the divorce, by silent agreement, or maybe just avoidance. But this year, my mother insisted. "We need to heal," she'd said over the phone, in that voice that really meant I need everyone under one roof, so I can pretend things are fine. I said yes immediately. Dinner was at my aunt's place, long dining table, heavy with food, every seat full. My brother and his wife walked in late, her belly now unmistakable. They smiled too wide, the kind of smile that begs for people to believe it. We were halfway through the turkey when my aunt clinked her glass for attention. "Before dessert," she said, "our family tradition, the slideshow." Usually, it's baby photos and awkward school pictures. This year, I had been put in charge. The screen lit up with a title slide. What family really means. The first few images were harmless. Childhood Christmases, beach trips, birthday cakes. Then came a candid shot of my brother and my ex at the housewarming party, champagne glasses raised. A murmur went through the table. Next slide. The text message. The actual screenshot. Tricking her out of the apartment in bold, black letters, blown up to fill the entire screen. The room went still. My mother's fork froze halfway to her mouth. My brother shifted in his seat, then leaned forward, as if getting closer might change the words. The next slide was the kicker. A photo of my apartment deed, framed, with a gold plaque. Underneath it, in small, elegant type. "Some things aren't for sale." No one spoke. Not for a long 10 seconds. Then my aunt, bless her, started clapping. Just once.
Twice.
Then others joined, hesitant, awkward, but loud enough to fill the room. My brother's wife pushed her chair back and stood up. "We're leaving." No one tried to stop them. After they were gone, the table breathed again. Dessert was served. Conversation tiptoed back. My mother didn't look at me the rest of the night. On the way home, I thought about the text messages, the court papers, the foreclosure notices, all the little fragments of their plans scattered like broken glass. Now they were the story, and I was the one who told it. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about making sure that every person who mattered to them knew exactly who they were. And the best part? I hadn't lied once. The Christmas came quieter than usual. No group photos. No matching sweaters. Just a small gathering at my apartment, Richard, a couple of close friends, and the kind of peace you only appreciate after years of chaos. We'd just finished dinner when the first notification buzzed on my phone. Then another. And another. A coworker had tagged me in a local news article. The headline was almost boring in its formality. "Real estate dispute ends in foreclosure." I clicked. There it was in black and white. My brother and his wife had officially lost their home. The bank had taken possession. The article quoted a neighbor, who described them loading boxes into the back of a borrowed pickup truck. The neighbor also mentioned, in a detail I will treasure forever, that my brother had been overheard saying, "This is her fault." Richard raised his glass. "To poetic symmetry," he said. I smiled. Because here's the thing about symmetry. It doesn't just happen. You have to build it. You have to know when to speak, when to go silent, and when to let the weight of someone's own choices crush them without lifting a finger. A week later, I mailed my brother a Christmas card. Inside, I slipped a photo of the gold plaque deed, taken from a new angle so the light caught every word. No note, just the photo. I imagined him opening it in whatever cramped rental they'd landed in, his wife watching over his shoulder, both of them remembering the slideshow, the applause, the way no one had come to their defense. And that's when I realized the apartment was never the real victory. The real victory was walking into my own space, turning the key in my own door, knowing I'd kept every inch of it not just out of spite, but out of principle. I poured myself a glass of wine, stepped out onto the balcony, and watched the city lights stretch out below me. Somewhere out there, they were starting over. Somewhere out there, they were rewriting the story in their heads, telling themselves it was bad luck or other people's fault. But I knew, and everyone who mattered knew. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's a framed piece of paper, a slideshow, and the sound of a door closing behind you while you keep walking forward.